So how does a message that's literally thousands of years old stay relevant in our crazy, hyper-digital world? Well, today we're going to break down a fascinating blueprint that does exactly that. It blends ancient faith with some really savvy modern marketing science. Let's dive in.
It all kicks off with this really powerful idea. Writing is basically a form of time travel. It lets our ideas cross not just continents, but entire centuries. It's like a message in a bottle, sent to some distant shore, or maybe even a distant future. And that very idea, that's the engine that drives this entire strategy we're about to unpack.
All right, so here's the game plan. We'll start with that big idea, a message across time. Then we'll zoom in on what's called a ministry of writing. After that, we'll check out their toolkit, uncover some of their digital outreach secrets, and wrap it all up with the core message that really any creator can learn from.
Okay, first up, a message across time. This is the foundation for everything that follows. It's all about the enduring power of the written word.
So, Section 2, the ministry of writing. How is this big idea actually put into practice? We're going to look at a very specific blueprint that's designed for faith-based communication. So what in the world is a writing ministry? Well, according to this guide, it's basically an extension of a core religious mission. But here's the key, right? The goal isn't just to inform people, it's to transform them. That focus on impact over just information, that's what shapes their entire strategy.
Now, before we get to the how, we've got to understand the why. This whole strategy is built on these 4 pillars. First, the idea of God as the original communicator. Second, that anything they write has to balance grace and truth. So be compassionate, but don't water down the message. Third, a deep belief that words actually have the power to change lives. And finally, a huge sense of integrity and accountability for what they put out there. All of this, together, it's like the moral compass for the whole operation.
Section 3, the Modern Scribe's Toolkit. Okay, this is where we get into the practical stuff, the how. And this is where we see this really clever blend of old school and new school tools. They're basically masters of both worlds.
So take a look at this. It's basically a 2-pronged attack. On one side, you've got traditional print stuff like tracts and magazines. That's for reaching older folks or people in rural areas who might not have great internet. But then, on the other side, you've got the whole digital shebang. Blogs, social media, video, all aimed at building an online community and reaching a younger, global audience. It's such a clear example of knowing exactly who you're talking to and meeting them where they are.
Let's dig into one of those traditional tools for a second. I mean, you might think a little pamphlet is no big deal, but there's a serious strategy here. First, the language has to be super simple, no jargon. Second, it's got to focus on just one single theme, like hope or purpose. Third, and this is crucial, it has to have a clear call to action. What do you do next? Pray this, call this number. And finally, a plan for distribution that targets places with tons of people. It's a total masterclass in focused communication.
Now, let's flip over to the digital side. This isn't just posting random stuff. It's a full-on content strategy. They're using tools like Canva to make these really nice-looking quote posters. They're using video apps like CapCut for short, punchy sermons and personal stories. They use those carousel posts you see on Instagram for step-by-step lessons. And they keep it all consistent with themes like Faith Fridays to get their audience into a rhythm. Honestly, it's a playbook any social media manager would recognize in a heartbeat.
And that brings us to what I think is the most incredible part of this whole thing. It's where ancient faith meets modern data science. We're about to get a peek behind the curtain at the actual data that drives their entire digital outreach.
Here it is. This is the key strategic shift. Instead of just pushing a message out, they focus on what the audience is actively pulling in. They're listening. They're paying attention to the exact questions people are already typing into search engines. And that's where a super powerful tool comes into play. SEO.
I mean, just look at how ridiculously specific these keywords are. People aren't just searching for God. On YouTube, they're looking for things like Tomo Christian Songs 2024, or a specific speaker by name. On Google, it's practical stuff, like Tomo Christian Church near me. And on Facebook, it's all about shareable content, like Bible verse memes.
By creating stuff that directly matches these phrases, the ministry isn't just guessing what people want. They are literally answering the exact questions people are asking. They're speaking the digital language of their audience. It's brilliant.
All right, so what's the big takeaway from all this? Let's zoom back out and look at the core wisdom here. Stuff that applies to absolutely anyone, no matter what message you're trying to share with the world.
Yeah, this whole blueprint, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's actually been reverse engineered from the success of real-world writers and ministries, people who've spent decades mastering this craft and have built these massive, dedicated followings.
Just take this for an example. One of the people they model, a writer named Sam Jebadurai, has written over 750 books. 750! Wow! Now, the lesson here isn't that you have to write that many books. The lesson is about the incredible power of consistency, of just showing up and doing the work over a long, long time. That kind of dedication builds an unbelievable library of resources for your audience.
And that brings us here to the final distilled wisdom. 4 key principles that any creator can put to work. First, write for your purpose, not just for popularity or clicks. Second, use a multi-platform approach. Repurpose your best stuff to get the maximum reach. Third, have an audience-first mindset. The guide calls this writing with a shepherd's heart, which means really truly understanding their needs. And finally, tell stories. Personal stories, testimonies, they make any message feel real and tangible.
So, as we wrap up, it really all comes back to that very first idea, the enduring power of the written word. We've just walked through a detailed modern-day blueprint for how to send a message across time and technology. And really, it just leaves us with a simple but pretty deep question to think about for ourselves. If you could write one thing that would outlive you, what message would you want it to carry? Thanks for watching The Explainer.